This video is a general aviary update about what's going on with the breeding season, including what's going on with this guy. But if you're interested more in the tips and techniques about hand feeding and taking care of baby chicks, I'm going to split out the fine details and setting up the brooder and all of that in a separate video. In the last couple of videos, I kind of covered the first part of the breeding season in configuring the inhabitants of the aviary and how the black cheeks were doing, and this little guy, the little twin spot baby who fledged out for Julius and Rain in their first clutch. And I talked about the problems I was having with the black cheek waxbills, and they're both with infertile clutches and also failing to feed the chicks that did hatch. And I talked about the violet-eared waxbills and the chick that got tossed, and then the other chick and the two fertile eggs that were abandoned, and how I gave them to the other pair of violet-eared waxbills who had just figured out that their clutch was all infertile eggs, and I had just pulled their nest and thought, well, maybe they will adopt the chick and the other fertile eggs, and they did. And not only did they save the chick, but the two eggs hatched, and these three youngsters are growing up. They fledge now, and they will be independent in another couple of days. They're getting very close to experimenting with seeds and eating on their own. And then in the flight next to the violet ears are the twin spot pair. They're both F1 generation, so they have hatched out their first clutch. Actually, the mom has had clutches before, but this is the first time for this pairing. And they have had 5 chicks, and they are now very close to independent as well, almost exactly the same age. And these are my first F2 generation chicks. That means their parents were hatched in my aviary, and these guys have hatched in my aviary. Very proud. So now this week, the twin spot chicks in the aviary have fledged. I have no idea how many there are. I've seen 4 at the same time. They're all over the place. I haven't caught them in one spot at the same time. They're coming along nicely, and they showed up on the same day that the other chicks did, so it was a busy morning. However, that brings me to the topics that I did not cover in the last couple videos, which brings me to this little guy. So here's what happened. Julius and Rain had their first clutch. I told the story of what happened with the interference from the other birds in the aviary and how one of the chicks was lost. So I moved the black-cheeked waxbills out when their clutches also failed. And Julius and Rain decided to start a second clutch, and I felt a little bit more optimistic about it.
How you doing?
But this is the only chick that hatched, and I became worried about it because it appeared that Julius and Rain were spooked again. I saw them both out of the nest a little bit too early in the process. So when I saw them out one afternoon, I thought, well, maybe it's just because it's warm in the aviary. I saw them out the next morning, and I was worried about it, and so I let it go about an hour or two, and I saw them out again, and I decided to pull the nest down, and this little guy had an empty crop, and I freaked out, and I took him and put him in the brooder and took over, basically. So I decided to split this video into 2 chunks. This is the story, and it all has a happy ending. But there's tips and techniques about hand feeding finches. I do things maybe just a little bit differently. Everybody does, and it might be helpful, and I've got a nice documentation, so I'm going to take advantage of it. I'll break that up into a different story so that for people who are interested in just that, they don't have to wade through all the drama. Thanks for watching.